Hi, I'm Kathy Mills from Short Film Edits, and I'm here with Daniel Jongma for an interview today. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Could we start this with you telling us a little bit about you?
Yeah, very, very broad question. I could talk for hours. There's
Go for
there's there's a lot to
it.
say, so stop me anytime. But I'm here on this interview because I'm an actor in short dramas, which is kind of how we've come to be having this conversation. But we'll get into that, I'm sure. So I'll give a bit of a spiel about besides the short dramas. I'm a lover of cats, as you can see by the painting behind me, painted by my partner, Rachel, who I also love. But yeah, I really like uh, uh, speaking to people. I love presenting. So beyond acting, I also do live streaming. I live stream Minecraft on TikTok, on YouTube, on Twitch, though I haven't really done anything on Twitch lately. But yeah, besides that, I like going to the gym. I like staying fit, which kind of works with short dramas and that's kind of like part of the career, I suppose. And besides that, spending time with friends and family. But yeah, that's the outside of acting stuff. In the acting stuff, I've been in the industry since the beginning of verticals. I was lucky enough to be in the first vertical they shot in Australia, which was just crazy.
Oh,
Before we even knew that it was going to be vertical, like I just rocked up on set and they were like, "Yeah, it's vertical. Okay, nice. That's fun. That's new."
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so grateful to be part of this industry. It's a growing industry. It keeps being a growing industry, like every couple of months it gets to a new level and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe this is it. And then it goes again and again and again. So
Yeah.
that's something I love about this industry. But yeah, keen to chat more about it and hear what questions and specific stuff you want to know.
It's actually been really exciting to see it grow. It's like
It
so much
has.
progress in
Yeah,
such a short time. Well, for me, because I've
absolutely.
only been around since February, so I've seen it grow.
Really?
Yeah.
I could have sworn you've been around for longer. Like in my
Mm.
head, like I've been seeing your content for quite a while. So I guess
Yeah.
that's evidence that your content is kind of making a mark on the industry. So that's awesome.
Thank you. Okay. As someone who creates in front of and behind the camera, how do you keep your creative vision with constraints like budget, time, and format?
I think you just do your best at the end of the day. Like I can elaborate on that, but simply, it's just I think the challenge that a lot of people face, especially in verticals, and what you're kind of alluding to there, is that verticals are compared to big movies, they're much lower budget, like micro budget compared to what the movies are looking at. And we're producing the same amount of content. It's
Yeah,
still a 70, 80-minute vertical for most of these things, which is the equivalent of a feature-length movie. Which means that you're not only running on a micro budget, you're running on a micro timeline. We shoot these in like less than 2 weeks. Some verticals are shooting 5, 6 days. So in one
yeah,
week, you shoot the entire like feature film basically, which is crazy. And I think that how I go about it is prepare as much as you can, but also prepare for all of that to go out the window and just
mm,
accept the position that you're put in. I think that when it comes to a time constraint like shooting a movie in 5 days, there's no time to complain. There's no time to be like, "Oh, but I didn't get the time for this and that's why I can't do that and then I can't." Like if you spend that time, like it's time you don't have, you can't waste any of it. So I think that it's really helped me develop that go-getter kind of like, all right, let's just do it. Let's do our best. Let's see what happens. And I think that keeping a positive mindset throughout that as well, of trusting the process. It doesn't always turn out great. Like you're not really working with a lot compared to, shall we say, like the big movie sets and all of that. But there is so much good content out there in verticals. Like it is so possible to do. And when you make something that is genuinely cinematic and beautiful, knowing full well that you had like no budget, no time, no rehearsal, and you nail it on the first take, like there's no better feeling than that, I think. That feeling of like pride of like, nice. Like I'm so happy that we were able to achieve that. Not just achieve it, but achieve it under the circumstances. So
yeah,
making those wins count and being like recognizing that that was a good take. Because I think it's easy to dwell on the negative, like I was mentioning before, and just complain about the
yeah,
situation. The situation is what it is.
yep,
And from an actor's perspective, like I'm not a producer. I might be soon in the future. But I'm not a producer. I'm not setting the timeline. I'm not setting the budget. I'm not deciding the story or the script or the character or anything. I'm there to perform my role. And I
Mm,
think that it's really taught me you have to accept it. And there are things you can change, and like trying to figure out where my role starts and finishes has been a challenge throughout the experience. And we're all figuring it out as we go.
mm,
But yeah, definitely keeping positive and accepting the majority of the situation and just doing your best with what you've got, I think is the main way I get through.
that's good. Okay. Um, okay, what's your favorite line you've said on screen? The
Oh,
tough one.
I have favorite scenes and I have
Mhm.
favorite kind of like moments.
Okay.
My
You can give me one of
favorite
those.
line. No, no, no. I just remembered my favorite line.
Okay.
And it's my favorite for a number of reasons. It was my fourth vertical, third or fourth. I've done 30 something now. So this is like
Yeah.
way back in the beginning. I think this was in 2023. So a little
Yeah.
while
Okay.
ago. But my
Yeah.
character said the line, "Be careful, never get wet."
Mm,
And it was just so kind of out of pocket. It doesn't make sense when I say it by itself. It didn't make sense in the scene either. Be careful, never get wet. It was one of those lines that I think was translated really poorly and
yeah.
just didn't make sense. I believe what it meant because the character was speaking to another character about there'd been a shark attack and they were on an island
Mm,
and that kind of thing. And I think what he meant to say is don't go in the water. Be
yeah.
careful, like don't go in the water because the sharks are going to be there. But he just said never get wet. And it
Mm,
just you think does it have a sexual connotation? And then it's like no, not really.
mm,
That's not what they were going for. It's like is there any other humor to it? Not really. Like it just didn't make sense. And so it
yeah.
became kind of the joke of the entire series because we said that I think on like day 2 or day 3 and it was a 8 or 9 day shoot. And so we just keep saying it to each other because like when you say be careful, it's a big deal and like everyone
Yeah.
listens and then you follow up with like never get wet and it's just ridiculous. So I think
Yeah.
that's for the comradeship and like the friendship that we built out of that series. I think that's one of my favorite lines. Um
Mm,
yeah, I think that's
mm,
got to be my favorite.
okay. On set, how do you decide when to rely on pre-preparation versus when to let the moment carry you?
Oh, I don't know. Like that,
Mm,
I won't lie to you. That I've never considered that.
okay.
I think it's largely instinct.
Yeah.
And I think that, like I was saying before, you prepare as much as you can, but one of the big challenges with preparing is you then get stuck into it. And there's a lot of kind of academic research or like big kind of actors that have quoted comments on this kind of topic of how much should you prepare and how much should you let kind of flow in the moment, because you don't want to stick into one thing and then the director comes along and says, "Yeah, look, I know that you're kind of crying in that. Could you give me a bit more happy?" And it doesn't make sense because you've already decided that your character feels a certain way. So
Mm,
that's always a challenge. It's always a challenge when you read a script, decide, like you make a choice. You should make a choice, right? As
yeah.
actors, one of our jobs is to read a script and be like, okay, this line I'm going to play angry, or this part of the script, like the reaction is going to be hurt. And sometimes it's an obvious choice. Sometimes it's not an obvious choice. And sometimes the non-obvious choices actually show up better on camera. So depending on who you're working with, it's always a challenge. And also with the time constraints, it's a challenge. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier, where sometimes like it's not so much letting go in the moment and letting the moment take you, but I think that what we really have to do as actors in vertical dramas is we have to let go of our ego in the moment. And that's really, really hard. Because as actors, our brand is to act and it's to perform a character the way that we want. And it's to have that character show up on camera the way that we've kind of embodied them. But the challenge is that you don't have time to argue, you don't have time to go through 10 different kind of takes and variations and find the perfect kind of mix of what you think, what the writer thinks, what the director thinks, what the producer thinks. There's so many people that are kind of influencing what your character shows up on screen. Um, and I think it's really important to sometimes just play it with your best shot. First take, do the best you can, and if they like it, they'll move on. If they don't like it, they'll tell you, and you have to accept that. You have to if they
Mm,
tell you to change, you take the ego out and you say, "Okay, you want me to play it happy? I'll try and play it happy." I think in the beginning of my vertical career, I would not argue, but I would say, "Oh, but I thought this," and then I'd explain my side, but you don't have time. You don't have
yeah.
time to. So it's this difficult balance of trusting everyone around you. And I think
Mm,
that's kind of where it comes to giving into the moment, but trusting the process, trusting the director knows what they're saying and that they have their vision. Because even with as many verticals as I've done, I still I still disagree with what a director might say. But
yeah.
that's because I have my vision, they have their vision. But at the end of the day, theirs trumps mine. So
Mm,
it's a balance. It's a tough balance, but I think so long as everyone is respectful and trusts each other, you can get through it pretty easily.
yeah. And I know some directors are like prefer collaboration with the actors more than others. So it depends on which
Depends on that,
vertical,
depends on how much
which
time you
director.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
I've seen directors fired because they're too
ooh,
collaborative. I've seen directors
okay.
fired because they're not collaborative enough, you
Wow.
know? So it can
Okay.
go both ways and it's you go on so many sets because it's so quick, right? Like
Mm,
in our like I've worked with maybe 20 different directors. I rarely work with directors multiple times because there's just so many different projects in so many different places in
yeah.
the world. There's only a few directors that I've been lucky enough to work with multiple times. Um,
Mm,
so every set is different in terms of the time pressure, in terms of the budget, the location, kind of there's all those constraints that you have. There's 100,000 problems that could
mm,
possibly go wrong. And depending on like how stressful the environment is or how collaborative it can be, it could go well, could go not so well.
mm,
But yeah, it all comes down to time. At the end of the day,
yeah.
you have to get it done.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge.
Okay. Okay. What keeps you creatively inspired between projects?
Well, this is something that I struggled with initially. And it was where you'd finish a project, which is super intense, right? You're a billionaire, you're blacklisting someone,
Mm,
you're kind of like having a fight or an action scene, and then it's really romantic. Like it's high stakes in verticals. And as actors, we live through that. So we experience those high stakes. And I think especially the female leads, right? They're
mm,
getting tortured or abused or humiliated, and then they're swept up in romance, and then they're humiliated again, and then swept up in romance. It's very like high highs and low lows in terms of the roller coaster. And while that's a character and it's not real, we still experience it to some extent, and that kind of
mm,
follows through. So you finish a project that's been full of emotion, full of like high stakes, and then the real world is like
mm.
so mundane, and it's like, oh, okay, I have to pay rent. Ah,
Yeah.
I'll go do that. Okay. I've got to make breakfast. Huh. Okay, and I'll do that. I should probably make my bed. Okay. But it's just it's so mundane. So initially that was a challenge for me, where I'd
Mm,
finish a project and I'd struggle to kind of go back to normal life. But I think the more projects I've done, the less challenging that's become. And that's more kind of just like a time thing because I've learned to separate myself from the project a lot more than I did. I think it's kind of like the first time you eat a new food, for example. It's super tasty and it's really nice. But then if you have that food every night for a week, or you have it like several times across like a month or a 2 month period, it loses that magical effect compared to if you had it like once a year, for example.
mm,
Terrible analogy for the context, but the idea of the more you do something, the less challenging it becomes. That's kind of
Yeah.
what I'm trying to convey. So I think it over time it just became easier. There wasn't any real strategy that I put in. But in the beginning, what I did try to do was just make sure I had something to do. There was
Yeah.
a quote that I saw from Tom Hiddleston, who plays Loki in the Marvel universe. But he's a fantastic actor himself. He's done a
Mm,
lot of stuff, really, really powerful.
that's
But
great.
no, he's awesome on my top list. But he said, do something. Just do one small
Mm,
thing every day that makes you feel like an actor. And I really took that to
mm,
heart, and I was like, okay, what could that be? And for me,
mm,
that was streaming to begin
yeah.
with. So streaming was something that filled my time. I could create my own schedule. So when I'm not working, I can do streaming. Technically, there's a monetary thing because like people can donate and you can make money. And I actually like I was really happy with the success that I had from it, but it wasn't the purpose. It was just to
Yeah.
do kind of presenting things. Today, for example, I'm talking to you, right? This is technically kind of work,
Yeah.
as much as this is just a casual conversation. Um, but yeah, finding just one thing. And then once you do
Mm,
one thing, it's actually pretty easy to find another, and then
yeah.
another, and then another, and another, and another. And I think that that consistency was really important in terms of keeping my baseline perspective on the industry and keeping my emotions kind of like level. Because it's really easy as an actor also, you finish a project, especially a high stakes one, and you feel so alone. And you feel just, oh, okay, I'm not valued anymore. Like there's nothing to do. No one's asking me to like say lines in front of a camera. Like your worth becomes you as an actor. And then when that stops being true, when you're no longer on set, your worth plummets. So it is really, really important, I think, to have those other things to do. And that's why when you asked me about me in the beginning, it was like, oh, okay, what am I, but not the actor. What else do I do?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's super important, whatever that may be, whether it's streaming or I don't know, posting on Instagram. That's technically helping your career because it's social
Yeah.
promotion. Can
Yeah.
be a tiny thing even, but just one thing every day. That's what I tried to do.
Well, that's good. That's good. Okay. Are you able to talk about opportunities Australia has to offer for actors?
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
so much opportunity.
Hmm.
In fact, I'll raise a new thing that's happened in the industry
Oh,
to
cool.
kind of talk about that. So recently, I don't know if you would have seen, but the union, so
Yes.
SAG has picked up verticals in the US,
Yeah.
which is really, really exciting for a number of reasons. Firstly, SAG picking up verticals is just brilliant in general. Because if it's a union vertical, you're looking at better rates, you're looking at transparent pay, better working conditions. You have like the union basically just with a watchful eye, making sure everything is being done correctly, which is a huge deal, right? Because
Yeah.
most verticals operate well, but there's always that like unknown of like, oh, is it going to be safe? Is it not? And I think that the union stepping in and like having a presence on set, I think is fantastic for the protection of actors and just general working conditions. And if anything, it just incentivizes the producers to play ball, which is a
Yeah.
fantastic thing. Most of the time, like I said, most of the time, most producers are lovely, very caring, very brilliant. But without that watchful eye, it's not as strong of a check and balance until unions come in. So that's a great thing for the US. How does that affect Australia in terms of opportunity? So
Mm.
if verticals start getting picked up even more, if most verticals in the US become union, the budgets are going to have to increase. It's the
Yeah.
only like outcome, right? So if they pick up more union verticals, the budgets go up, which means the projects go down. It's a basic economic kind of supply and like quantity kind of graph, right? Because if you have to pay more, you can only produce so many. Or it's not supply,
Yeah.
it's price and quantity.
Yeah.
Um, what that means though is that they're probably going to go internationally looking for other places to produce. So Australia right now, I feel like is a very underrated market. I think that
Yeah.
there are a few producers kicking around in Sydney and in Melbourne, but I mean, what's
Mm.
going on in Brisbane?
Yeah.
There's no
Or
verticals in
Perth.
Brisbane
Mm.
or Perth, right?
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity to expand. Australia has a lot of land, a lot of locations. In fact, even just Australian stories haven't really hit the vertical scene that much. There's like one or
Mm,
two of them, but like not many at all. Huge opportunity in terms of like a new diverse market. But even if we're still sticking with the way the industry currently wants to see their customer market, which is that American dream billionaire CEO classic story, Sydney has so much to offer.
yeah.
Sydney or Melbourne or Australia in general. And if you have the budgets getting hiked up in the US, then that means that there'll be more projects coming internationally for Australia. So the opportunity
Mm,
there is that we haven't got the union on board verticals, which is I'd love the union to get involved, and I'm not saying that it's a good thing that they're out of it, but looking
yeah.
at the US, that brings us an opportunity, which is a very good thing.
Mm,
Beyond that, I think the beauty of Australia is that it's actually pretty easy for an Australian to do an American accent. Like we can
yeah.
just switch in and out of the accent relatively easily. It's not too much of a trouble. Um, and because we're able to kind of flip in and out, and we effectively look American. Like if we just
Mm,
started talking like an American, we could just
mm, pull it
we
off.
would pass as an American.
Yeah.
So to that extent, I think that Australia has the talent. So you don't really
Mm,
have to fly in, but we
mm,
also have so much opportunity in terms of the space, the locations, the views.
mm,
Even if you were to do something like, I don't know if you saw the movie Fall Guy.
mm,
Okay, so Fall Guy was like a big, big movie. And the whole plot is that they're shooting a Hollywood movie within the movie. So it's like a
mm.
meta kind of thing. But they're shooting a movie and it's all about the stunt guy. That's
Okay.
what the plot takes place. They flew in American and British kind of main cast. There weren't many Australians besides like day players. But they actually used Sydney Opera House,
Mm,
the Sydney Harbour Bridge. They used the beautiful locations that Sydney has, but they worked it into the story. So the story was that they were filming a project in Australia. So there was some Australian cast, but like it was filmed in Australia and it wasn't apologetic about being in
mm,
Australia. They weren't trying to hide it, you know, which
okay.
is something that I feel like verticals are missing, where you
Mm,
could just film about a CEO who comes to Australia for a holiday or
mm,
for a business deal or something like that. And then you have main American cast and then a few of the other cast with an Australian accent. You could film
mm,
that with an all Australian cast very
yep.
easily. And so I
Yep.
think that that needs to be considered a bit more in terms of the opportunity, because most verticals that are filmed in Australia pretend to be in in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's just not necessary, and I think that it's removing the value that you literally have at your doorstep.
Yeah.
So that's the main opportunity I think Australia has.
Yeah. I agree. We have so many beautiful locations here, like you mentioned before, that, yeah.
Yeah, but I can rattle off like we've got beautiful beaches. We have
Mm,
the Blue Mountains, which is
yes.
only like from beach to Blue Mountains is like hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Not that far, you know? And then we
Mm,
have sand dunes, which is
mm-hmm.
another cool location. And then within Sydney, of course, we've got those beautiful kind of tourist destinations and views and all of that. So it's absolutely possible. It just takes planning and a slight rework of like, oh, we can actually say that it's in Australia, you know?
Mm,
It
yeah.
doesn't need to be set in America, but shot in Australia.
Yeah. I think I need to add Sydney to my list of destinations to visit. I'm in Perth and I still never been. So
Never been to Sydney.
no.
I need to add
No.
Perth to my list. I've never been to Perth, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
Sydney's beautiful. I
Mm,
love Sydney. I grew up in Sydney, always lived here.
yeah.
Stunning.
No, I
It's
lived in
awesome.
Adelaide for a while.
Oh, I've been to Adelaide. Yep, yep.
Yeah, I lived there for 3 years. And then I've been to Melbourne once. And then I'm going back to Melbourne at the end of the year for a holiday.
Cool. Fun.
Yep. And get to check out some more tourist things. I only went there for a convention, so didn't see much. So,
What was the convention?
PAX cosplay
Oh,
convention.
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
I
we
would
looked all
love to get
weekend.
into cosplay. I would
Yeah.
love to. I don't I don't know really where I'll start. I've seen just like a few posts of like cosplay, like people in
Mm.
character. And it just looks so cool. It looks like a lot of
Yeah.
effort. I'm not really into like
Yes.
doing
Some
my
of
own hair and
those they
makeup,
spend big
but
money on. Yeah.
it looks so cool. I'd love to get into
Me.
that, but
I wasn't
I gotta
dressed
figure
up.
out
I was
how.
just behind the camera filming everybody else, but it was
No,
still
I want to get
fun.
dressed up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yep. Some cool costumes for sure.
Mm,
Okay. You founded Acting Vertical, yeah?
I did.
You did. To support actors and creators in short vertical content. In that role, how has your teaching or mentoring others reshaped your own understanding of acting?
I think that we are all unique individuals.
Mm,
And we all have our own personal experience. So my experience as an actor is different to the experience of every talent that I manage,
mm,
different to the experience of every other actor in existence. So it's really reshaped my view of the industry, specifically in the difference of how um, male and female actors get treated. Because I'm negotiating contracts on both sides, of course. Like I have talent that are male and female. And it was just really interesting looking at how those contract negotiations have gone for them. And as soon as I've kind of stepped in as a manager, um, it became what I'm used to, which
yeah.
was interesting for me. So whether it's a difference in someone's look or a difference in their gender or a difference in kind of um, their experience and shall we say just how good they are and how valuable they are to the production, um, it's been a challenge to kind of rework my idea of this is what an actor can get, which was just based on my own experience. But then I have talent that are kind of this whole range of value to production. And then you also have that second consideration of how much does not just what is their real value, but what is production's belief of their value,
Yeah.
which was a really, really interesting part of it because for some of my talent, when they started with my agency, production's belief of their value was significantly lower than what it should be. So I
Mm,
would put there without putting any real numbers out there. I would put them here, and production was like, they're kind of here, man. And I just
mm,
disagreed. And
yeah.
so I fight those battles, and that's part of the management. But it really got me looking at why does production believe you are valued that particular number?
Yeah.
And when you have your own personal experience, like when I just had my experience, I was valued at a particular kind of point because of just what I did and how I did it, and that was that. But when you get multiple data points, when you can look at person A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and with my own experience, I started to figure out what makes producers think you have more value. And that was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So my kind of like learnings in that respect, at the moment, I'm really looking at social media. That's a huge point.
Mhm.
It's an idea that people throw around, but like a lot of people, I think, still believe that they can get away with not having social media. You can't.
Mm, mhm.
In verticals specifically, you can't. The reason why I say that is because the socials become proof of concept for the actor themselves. If you have no social media, but you have a successful project, say you have a project that gets 50 million, 100 million views, right? You can use that project as portfolio and be like, I was in this project, it got 100 million views, but there's like 20 different reasons a project is successful. You're only one of them.
Mm,
Whereas if the project is successful and you have a big social following, it's immediately like, oh, it was probably successful because you have a big social following, and you immediately get that kind of benefit of the doubt that you will like probably the success point. Because the reality is we
yeah.
don't know the true success point for that vertical.
Mm,
So to that extent, it became that social is not the actual value that they place on it, but if you have something successful, social is what kind of makes them think that you are the reason that it was successful. Because it could be successful because
mm,
of great script, great locations, great shots, great editing, great directing. Maybe your co-star was really good, right?
mm,
Maybe you were terrible and everything else went well, and you're just kind of riding the wave of success from that. But
mm,
if it's successful and you have good socials, that's what they're kind of using as proof of concept, especially because a lot of my work is either done in Australia or China, especially a lot of the China-based casting directors, They're not looking at traditional sites like Showcast or casting networks or anything else. They find their talent and they check, like do a background check on talent based on their Instagram.
Mm.
So if you don't have an Instagram, you look like a nobody. You might have a good
Okay.
project, but you don't look like someone who's committed to vertical dramas. And you might know this about me already, Kathy, but I put a lot of effort into making my brand in
Yeah.
Instagram. And my brand is I'm a vertical actor.
Yeah.
That's not to say that I don't do other acting or I don't do other things, but you look at my Instagram immediately, you know what I do. And that serves as that social proof where I send someone a project I had that did well, and then they look at my Instagram, they're like, oh, okay, this guy does acting. As
Yeah.
opposed to, oh, is this guy an actor? Or did he just kind of like do one project? Like I don't see it. So that's
Mm.
that's a really important thing that I've basically discovered from seeing all the weird differences between they're a really, really good actor. Why are you only offering that much? You know?
Yeah.
That's been a fun part of it that I've discovered.
Yeah. I mean, even when I see like a project and I go to look, the first thing I do when I see that project is go to see if they're on Instagram. Because if I'm doing like an edit or like, do something, I want to tag
Mm,
them, but they're not there. Like
mm.
sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. So,
Yeah. And I mean, people have reasons to not be on social media. Sometimes they
yeah.
have trauma or stalkers or things like that. So I
Yeah.
get it. And I'm not meaning to say any of this to pressure someone and say,
No.
well, if you want to be an actor, you have to do this. That doesn't
It's just
exist.
beneficial.
But it's very beneficial.
Yeah.
If you can, and if you've been kind of thinking about maybe doing it, you should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um, what's more challenging for you? Delivering subtle emotion in a quiet scene or sustaining high energy during action or dramatic scenes?
Definitely sustaining high energy. I think
Mhm.
most male leads will agree with me that it is very easy to rock up on set and say three words like, "Are you okay? Are
Mm.
you hurt? Did he touch you?" That's it. That's half vertical scripts in terms of what
Yeah.
I have to say generally. And it's easy. It's very easy to
Mm.
do that. But if you give me like a full action scene where I'm hitting and I'm kicking and I've got to yell at someone and I'm crying and I'm going crazy and just so much, it's tough. And
Mm.
that's half of what the female lead role is.
Yeah.
So I've so much respect for the girls that are going through all that because it is really tough what they have to put out in terms of the emotion and
Yeah.
constantly because you also then have to factor in like when are they doing the wide? When are they doing the close up? Because that
Mm.
emotion needs to peak. You can't hold it. It's just not possible. There are very
Yeah.
few people that can hold that emotion for like hours on end, day out, day in, day out. So you have to kind of time when you're going to do that big cry for
Mm.
when it's your close up. Because I don't know how much you know about shooting. I'm sure you know
Yeah.
this, but for the benefit of anyone who watches this that doesn't, you start with a wide, which means that you are just kind of shooting everybody in the whole scene from very, very far away. And then you slowly kind of work your way inwards depending on how many shots you want. You might do a two shot, which is like two people. And
Mm.
then you might eventually move in for the close up, which is where you're just doing kind of like just the person. And that's their shot. That
Yeah.
has to be the peak of emotion. That's so
Yeah.
hard. So hard to
Yeah.
time it, right? If all I
Hmm.
had to do is walk on a set and cry once, I could do that.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
be chill. But if I had to like cry 20 times and
Mm.
then cry again
Yeah.
for my close up, that's really tough. That's really
Yeah.
tough. But the ironic thing is that's what I want to do. I
Mm.
recognize that it's hard, but like that's what I want to be doing on these sets. I want to be doing a raw, powerful kind of like emotion. I want to be doing action scenes. I want to be
Mm.
like working. I want to
Yeah.
be in it and in amongst it. But I recognize it's a lot harder. So it's
Yeah.
it'll be a challenge on the side of like just emotional stamina. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
I find it harder, but I want to do it because it's
Yeah.
it's so much
But
more
that's
fun,
cool
I
though.
think.
Yeah. I have heard like when you go into a scene, always do your best, but then save, like you said before, save your biggest until that close up.
Yep.
Like,
The close-up's
yeah.
the main one.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
technical side of acting there.